Youth+no female lead+cheerful+funny+no CP, Bai Chen unexpectedly traveled through the world of tomb rating notes, and his age suddenly shrank from 16 to 10. He also rose a generation to become Wu Xie's uncle. At the beginning, we obtained the tomb rating mission recovery system. As long as you complete tasks or discover treasures of astonishing value, you can receive generous rewards. He is not greedy, but the system cannot withstand it and is not allowed to break down. Ding! Release a new task. Bai Chen lay on the sofa, lazily yawning and saying, "I'm tired and don't want to do it. I just want to lie down and lie down." Please note that if the host does not accept the task or the task does not meet the standards, the body organs will be randomly reduced by a few centimeters, such as. No, you misunderstood. I mean, I don't want to do something imperfect, I'll work hard now. Bai Chen jumped up from the sofa and rushed out with excitement. In order to complete the task, he joined the Anning rescue ship with a shameless attitude, and in order to exchange money, he specially grabbed a bald man's skin mask and put it in his pocket. I thought I could catch my breath, but it's just the beginning. Xisha underwater tomb, Qinling Divine Tree, Yunding Heavenly PalaceExplore, one large tomb after another. Various conspiracies and schemes began to emerge in their footsteps. To live, one must duel with them. So come on, see who laughs last. Chapter 1. Lai Ge Lai. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Warning, Ring Road. A black SUV is driving at a turtle speed of 10 miles on the road. The sound of waves on the left side is deafening, and the ringing of bicycles on the right side is incessant. Blue sky, white clouds, and beautiful waves. Huaxiong was not in the mood to pay attention. His mind was full of contemplation on one thing. How could he persuade the little ancestor sitting in the passenger seat to obediently return to Changsha? Although I have failed many times, I always have to try again until the last moment. Just thinking about the difficulty of the little one, Wu Xie furrowed her brows and her handsome features almost shifted. Bai Chen sat in the front passenger seat, looking at Wu Xie while holding a lollipop, and roast, "My nephew, your facial features will be squeezed into 18 folds. I know you are sad, but I still think Gubyali's steamed bun has become refined." Wu Xie's heart held back for a moment, so he couldn't bear to breathe. Taking a sigh of relief, he tentatively shouted, "Little dust. Call me uncle." Bai Chen's small face interrupted Wu Xie's words with a stern expression, and he straightened his small chest and said aggressively, "Mother and uncle, if you dare to leave me alone and run away, believe it or not, I will tell you later that you are bullying me, big sister." "Okay, my lovely little uncle, I really have something serious to deal with." Wu Xie rubbed her temples and patiently said in a tone that comforted the child, "You heard what was said on the phone. My third uncle suddenly disappeared, and the other person came to me to search for his whereabouts. Time is running out, so it's really too late." "I know, so are you not concerned about Wu Sanji's safety when driving so slowly now?" Wu Xie patiently advised for a long time, but to no avail, he choked on nothing. "But you can't force yourself to throw your 10-year-old uncle on the road. Not to mention that children who are not familiar with their place are prone to accidents. To be honest, if I did this, I would turn around and have my legs folded." The more I thought about it, the more conflicted I became, and I grabbed my hair in frustration. Bai Chen secretly chuckled to himself. Quickly adjusting his facial expression, he put on an elder posture and reached out his little arm to pat Wu Xie's head. "Big nephew, don't use bean buns as dry food. Your little uncle and I are not ordinary children." He patted his chest hard and snorted, "You forget that our Bai family is the ancestor of playing in the water. Your little uncle, I can definitely help you a lot if I play in the water. That's the ocean, the situation is different. The sea is also composed of water." Wu Xie's eloquence, which he had honed by selling antiques, was of no use at this moment. It was entirely due to the fact that a scholar encountered a soldier. It was unreasonable to say, He couldn't control Bai Chen, so he could only vent his frustration on the car. With a forceful press on the accelerator, the car slowly flew forward like an arrow leaving the strings. Looking at Wu Xie's bitter face with a resigned demeanor, Bai Chen felt like drinking ice water in summer. Twice as refreshing. Following closely, a system prompt sound sounded in my mind like a broken gong hitting. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the persistent battle mission. Task rewards. Water mandrill ability, ice silkworm dragon claw hook, a string of bananas, a lighter, a razor, a waterproof underwear. As the reward content became increasingly outrageous, Bai Chen's small face completely collapsed. Did you make a mistake? I'm not going to the night market to set up a stall, the reward items are too outrageous, right? Other people's systems reward killing all directions, how can you be so picky and abnormal when it's your turn? Is it true that there is a problem with one's own way of traveling? Thinking of the scenes that had happened in the past, Bai Chen stared at the beautiful scenery outside the car window and fell into contemplation. Climbing Huaxiong on the night of my 16th birthday in my previous life, I finally stood on the mountaintop and prepared to pretend and shout loudly. Holding the selfie stick and shouting, a bolt of lightning struck directly from the top of the head to the heel. Opening his eyes again, he was almost smoked and his 3 souls ran away from home. I saw a big mouth emitting a foul odor, less than 10 centimeters away from his face, and my eyes were looking forward to an intimate face-to-face without avoiding it. Bai Chen instinctively retreated and unexpectedly slammed his body into the wall. Children who grow up under the red flag do not believe in the theory of ghosts and monsters. His first reaction was that his good friend was pranking him. I'm going, what the hell is going on? No one answered. The stench is getting heavier and heavier, and spicy tears are about to float out. He didn't notice his condition and habitually reached out to his pocket, but didn't even take out a strand of yarn. With a blink of an eye, he didn't even want to take off his right shoe and thrust it into the foul-smelling mouth in front of him. He chuckled and said, I'll give you a reward. He thought it was a joke, but he completely angered the monster in front of him. The other party shook off their shoes and pounced with a whimper. Bai Chen lowered his head and slipped out of the room, shouting, Stop making a fuss, come out quickly. I've already seen your feet. Feet. Oh my goodness, bones. Prosthetics. No, why are you so dry? After running a few steps, Bai Chen, who had thick nerves, finally realized something was wrong. There are no escape rooms around, or there are terrifying rooms that have been deliberately created in an antique style. But a genuine cave. Not only that, he also shrunk. Ah. I'm proud of 1.8 meters. He finally let out a scream that matched the current situation. You screamed so miserably and ran so happily. Not running fast is not enough. When the thing that doesn't matter whether it's human or ghost strikes with one claw, a very deep mark appears on the wall. All kinds of signs indicate that it's not someone playing pranks or joking, but that it's 100% time traveling. It's important to escape at the moment, how can you think about how you got here? He just wants to know how he can go back. A pair of short legs flipped back and forth, unable to withstand the monster and taking 3 steps to push him. The more you run, the colder your heart becomes. Finally gritting his teeth, he decided to fight like a man even if he died. He stopped his steps. Turning around and bowing his head, with the determination to become a hero again in 18 years, he ran towards the monster like a small shell. Not to mention the explosive power, it's really good. I don't know if it's due to angle or force. The guy like the big Zhongzi leaned back and fell into the coffin with the lid open at the back. Bai Chen couldn't please either. I exerted too much force and couldn't stop my feet, hitting my head on the coffin board. Ding! Congratulations to the host for knocking on the system door. Grass is a plant that grows wildly. The system ignored Bai Chen and continued to introduce oneself. The full name of this system is Tomb Robbing Task Recycling System. In layman's terms, from the headscarf of Empress Nua to the handcuffs of Emperor Puyi, any valuable item can be recycled. Simultaneously publishing tasks, the host can receive various rewards for completing the tasks. Bai Chen's head was buzzing, and he felt nauseous, dizzy, and had 3 shadows when looking at things. Even so, after listening to the system, don't forget to shout loudly, "Where is the big gift package? Do you have a beginner's big gift package? Don't try to trick me. I have read novels and know that there must be a gift package in the system. Don't worry, please enjoy the luxurious renovation feast." As soon as the system finished speaking, Bai Chen's eyelids rolled and he fell to the ground with a creak. Chapter 2. Even if it's poorly arranged, it won't work. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In a daze, Bai Chen felt as if he had turned into a dough on the chopping board. One moment it was pulled into a long strip, another moment it was flattened, and another moment it was squeezed into an ellipse. In layman's terms, he believes he has been ravaged by the system. Bai Chen wanted to roar, but also wanted to roar. Can be controlled by the system to prevent the body from even farting. After a while, I finally managed to control my body. The first thing I said while gritting my teeth was, "I need to go home, can I stop using the system?" "Sorry, the system is turned on and the host does not have the right to terminate." The system's sound was unusually cold, like the cold climate in Siberia freezing the hope of white dust. A 16-year-old boy is in a rebellious period and hates being arranged in life the most. What system do you care about? There is no way to manipulate the young master for no reason. Especially when I think of myself just playing the game King of Glory and not having time to show off to friends before coming to this unlucky place. Feeling even more frustrated, he roared, "If you don't let me go home, then I won't go back. I'll just mess around, okay?" Ding. Host, please note that this system was initiated by you by kowtowing. You can choose to mess it up, but it's destined that you won't live until you're 16 years old. Once you die, you'll start life from scratch with memories until you're 16 years old, and keep repeating it. I'll make a big move. Bai Chen is about to collapse. Death is not scary. What is terrifying is the constant repetition of 9-year compulsory education. He imagined sitting in kindergarten time and time again, surrounded by children with big noses and wet pants. Continuously learning from 1 to 10, counting to 16 is enough. It's really scary. My body couldn't help but tremble 3 times, and my aura was like a deflated ball disappearing with a thud. As the saying goes, acquaintances are no match for battle. Bai Chen swallowed his saliva and gritted his scalp to fight for his rights. "Okay, I'll accept the task and give me the beginner gift pack," he said, ding. "Now distribute the beginner gift pack." 10 cubic meters of space. After waiting for a long time without any further explanation, Bai Chen hesitated for a while and asked tentatively, "System, are you stuck? What's down there?" "It's gone." "What about blood? Don't you give it to me. Please face the host, it's shameful to get something for nothing. This system has optimized your physical condition. Please check your own situation for details." Without waiting for Bai Chen to curse, he immediately passed on all his identity information. Bai Chen felt a sharp pain in his brain, and it took him a long time to sort out his identity information. "It's really fun, I actually became the little uncle of the tomb raider Wu Xie, whose name is still Bai Chen. But how come I'm only 8 years old? Does that mean that my 2 lifetimes together barely make up for a 30.8-year-old? While pondering, there was a commotion coming from behind in the coffin. Before he could recall what had happened earlier, he suddenly felt a gust of evil wind coming, as if the target was on his head. Bai Chen was startled in his heart. Instinctively, his feet left the ground and a 180-degree zombie jumped and turned around, facing the big Zongzi again. At this point, the distance is getting closer and closer, and it's too late to specify the route. I simply gave the other person a heartfelt kick. But he forgot that the situation was different now. The height of 1.5 meters could not reach the other party's heart at all, so he kicked Zhongzi's crotch with his small feet. Something unexpected happened. Zhongzi Leng, who was so arrogant just now, was kicked away. I saw it draw a beautiful arc in mid-air, and then fall heavily into the open-lid coffin again. Due to excessive force, a section of the leg bone fell off. Bai Chen was momentarily confused. I can't believe what happened before me is true. It's too exaggerated. How many pounds and ounces do you have in mind? When will you be able to kick someone with force on your feet? In a blink of an eye, I realized that perhaps this is the result of system transformation. Oh ho! It's so handsome. Bai Chen jumped 3 feet high excitedly, so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He waved his fists at the coffin and provocatively said, "Come out, didn't you just coax me? You have the guts to come out and fight me alone. Xiao Chen, where are you? Young master, where are you?" Suddenly, a rapid sound of footsteps came from outside the cave, interrupting Bai Chen's desire to have a big fight. Before he could figure out who the newcomer was, a group of burly men rushed in carrying flashlights. Bai Chen took advantage of the flashlight to see clearly. The first one is his father in this world. Bai Jingtian. He is also Wu Xie's biological grandfather. Bai Jingtian is nearly 70 years old, but his black hair looks like he is in his 50s. At this moment, my face was full of anxiety and my voice was trembling. Until I saw Bai Chen standing in front of me, my suspended heart finally returned to my stomach. He quickly stepped forward and grabbed Bai Chen, looking up and down without blinking. A handsome old face furrowed its brows, and it was effortless to trap a few flies deeply. After confirming that his son was not missing any arms or legs, Bai Jingtian finally breathed a sigh of relief and shouted coldly, "Little rabbit, you are really good. Did I tell you not to run around in the mountains?" Looking at the cold face of the person in front of him, Bai Chen not only had no aversion, but also felt very friendly. He could feel the trembling and nervousness of the other person holding him, as if he was the treasure he held in his palm. As soon as this cognition appeared, Bai Chen was no longer nervous. He naturally raised a smile at Bai Jingtian and affectionately shouted, "Dad, I'm fine." Looking at his playful and smiling son, Bai Jingtian was about to give him a lesson when a colleague behind him suddenly let out a scream of surprise. "Sir, the body of the old master has been destroyed." The old man. Bai Chen was dumbfounded. "Do you want such a coincidence? Did you tear down your cheap ancestors as soon as you appeared?" What happened next, Bai Chen no longer wants to recall. One-word description. Pain. He was beaten hard and knelt in the temple for 3 days. Only later did I understand what was going on. He dared to follow his father Bai Jingtian back home to pay respects to his ancestors. I heard others say there are good treasures on the mountain. He himself is a bare child, unable to resist his curiosity and secretly climbed the mountain. Accidentally falling into a hole resulted in a series of events. Bai Chen really wants to curse the system. Did you intentionally give yourself a beating when you saw that your journey was too comfortable? His doubts were systematically refuted. There are plenty of reasons. Without being beaten by society, how can one truly appreciate the fragrance of the system? Subsequently, a bunch of learning tasks were released. Until now, the plot has been going on for some time before finally releasing the related tasks. Ding! Release a new main task. 1. Follow Wu Xie to join the rescue team persistently. 2. Retrieve Zhang Qilin's mask. 3. Retrieve the jade beads from Wang Sanghai's mouth. 4. Confirm the true identity of the forbidden woman in the underwater tomb. 5. Confirm whether Anning is single. Bai Chen. Chapter 3. Death cannot be shortened. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'm still a child. Bai Chen rolled his eyes. He thinks the system is just a bit sick. Who would arrange this kind of flirting task for a 10-year-old child? Not to mention this life, even in the previous life, I did not live to adulthood. Who has experienced dealing with girls? The system ignored him at all and said to itself, task rewards. Fighting, intermediate, proficiency in firearms, intermediate, Qinling basic, task failure. Randomly select an organ to shorten by 3 centimeters from the body. I'll go. Bai Chen took a deep breath. My body couldn't help but shiver. In an instant, a series of kicks seemed to be playing in my ear. Countless voices were shouting desperately at the top of their throats. Absolutely not short. He immediately took on the task as if he had been beaten with chicken blood, patting his chest to ensure that he could definitely complete the task beautifully. Just having a prerequisite for completing the task right now, how can we find a reason to go find our nephew Wu Xie? Got it. Starting from my mother and elder sister, they both love me the most. After unremitting efforts, Bai Chen finally found a reason to appear in front of Wu Xie. Remembering the expression on his nephew's face, Bai Chen chuckled. Squeak! A piercing sound of sudden braking came, pulling Bai Chen back from his past thoughts. Where have you been? Bai Chen suddenly regained his composure and looked ahead of the car. I saw the vehicle parked in a parking lot next to a pier, and not far away stood a middle-aged man in a black suit. Wu Xie unbuttoned her seatbelt and turned her head to look at Bai Chen. Here we are. Wait in the car. Hey, Huaxiong, why did you get off the car? Wait for me. Alright, big nephew. Bai Chen stood under the car urging as he put on his backpack. Time is life, and third brother is still waiting for us to save him. Don't keep talking. There is a kind of regret called answering mom's phone. Otherwise, if I had missed answering the phone, I wouldn't have been entangled by this little ancestor myself. Wu Xie pinched her temples, let out a long sigh, and responded, let's go, the person ahead should be the one who picks us up. Just 2 steps away, the middle-aged man quickly stepped forward and said, hello, are you Mr. Wu? His tone was mixed with a hint of uncertainty, and his eyes looked vaguely at little Doubao Bai Chen standing next to him. Wu Xie pretended not to see it and nodded solemnly, that's right, my surname is Wu. Are you here to pick me up? Then let's go quickly. Yes, that's right, it's just this kid. The middle-aged man hesitated a bit, having worked for so many years and never seen anyone take the risk of taking care of children. Is this person surnamed Wu reliable or not? The boss won't find the wrong person, will he? He is. Wu Xie intends to introduce. Bai Chen immediately grabbed Wu Xie's arm and took a step forward with a stern expression, saying, I am his uncle and have a responsibility to take care of his personal safety. I will go there when he goes. Don't want us to separate. Ah. Are you taking care of him? The middle-aged man was a bit confused and stood in place for a while, unsure of how to handle it. Ah, what? Didn't you say time was tight? Bai Chen rolled his eyes, put on a small adult posture behind his hands, and snorted, your boss asked you to pick him up, but didn't you say you had to manage a few people? You just need to take us over, why bother with the rest? Okay, you make sense. Please come with me. We need to hurry up and the ship is about to depart. The middle-aged man raised his wrist to look at his watch, and it was true that he didn't have more time to dwell on these things. Setting sail. Where are we going? Wu Xie looked at the man with a puzzled expression and asked, what's going on? Can you explain it to me clearly? Let's talk while walking. The middle-aged man explained as he led the way, I'm really sorry, there was a reason why the hospitality was not good. Time is really limited, and the situation where we are going is very special. At most, after 2 days, we will enter a half-month monsoon season, and we will need to delay for 7 or 8 hours on the way. There is no more time to waste for us. In other words, if we cannot rescue someone within more than 10 hours, not only will your third uncle not be able to rescue us, but we are also likely to fall into a desperate situation. Wu Xie frowned tightly, never expecting the situation to be so complicated. My inner worries about my third uncle have intensified to some extent. Bai Chen noticed that Wu Xie was in a bad mood and reached out to pat his arm, comforting him, saying, "Don't be afraid. I have an uncle, and I will definitely help you rescue Wu Sangu." Wu Xie lowered her head and looked at Bai Chen, who pretended to be serious. Not only was she not comforted, but her heart was even more tired. He had already planned to lock Bai Chen into his room after boarding the ship. After finding the third uncle, he tirelessly sent the person back to Hangzhou. Even if you get scolded by your mother, you absolutely can't take over your uncle's affairs. I hope God blesses me and everything goes smoothly. Otherwise, Uncle San won't be able to find him, and Uncle Xiao is following in an accident. I don't have the face to go home and see my parents. The three of them walked forward quickly and approached the dock. The middle-aged man pointed to a very old metal fishing boat not far away and said, "Mr. Wu, this boat is our equipment for going out to sea." "Are you joking?" Wu Xie's face changed as she stared at the 7-ton tin fishing boat ahead, covered in copper rust. "Can this thing withstand the waves? It won't scatter halfway, will it?" "Big nephew, don't worry, they're not lacking in heart. Can they still joke about their own lives?" As Bai Chen spoke, he pointed to the short-haired woman wearing a diving suit at the bow of the boat and said seriously, "Look at that young lady on the boat. What's so scary about you as a young man? Can we still lose to the girls?" Cough. The middle-aged man coughed lightly. "Mr. Wu, please rest assured that due to safety inspections, we can only disguise the ship. In fact, all the equipment inside is the most advanced products in the world, and there will definitely be no problems you are worried about." To prevent Wu Xie from further questioning, the middle-aged man quickly walked a few steps closer to the side of the boat and shouted loudly, "Miss Ning, Mr. Wu has come over. You can set sail any time." After speaking, he turned around and left, afraid of being asked about the child's situation if he slowed down a step. Bai Chen looked back and felt that this guy had taken a desperate step. "Hello Mr. Wu, just call me Miss Ning. I will have full control over the upcoming itinerary." The smile on Anning's face cracked as she saw the white dust behind Wu Xie. After a moment, her tone suddenly became unusually serious. "Mr. Wu, could you please explain? Our trip is very dangerous, and we may very well lose our lives in the sea. Are you bringing a child onto the boat? Are you sure you're not joking? We're saving lives, not going on an outing." Chapter 4. Zhang Baldy, who blinds people's eyes. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. This beautiful sister, are you referring to me? Thinking of the unlucky task released by the system regarding Anning, Bai Chen believes that first impressions are still very important. He walked over from behind Wu Xie with a tight face, tidied up his clothes, and looked up at Anning with a calm expression, saying, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Bai Chen, and the missing Wu Sanqing is my third brother. I came with my nephew Wu Xie to save people. So please don't waste time, get on the ship and set off quickly." After finishing speaking, he crossed over Anning and walked onto the boat board without hesitation. After taking 2 steps, I didn't hear any footsteps coming from behind. I turned around and saw Wu Xie and Anning still standing in place with big eyes and small eyes. I couldn't help but sigh, "You adults are really troublesome. It's you who are anxious, and it's you who procrastinate. Being a good person is really complicated." Anning. Wu Xie patted her forehead with a feeling that she couldn't bear to look straight at her feet. Anning turned around to look at Bai Chen who had already boarded the ship, and then at Wu Xie, whose facial features were twisted. He remained silent for a long time and said, "Mr. Wu, I hope you don't regret it." Wu Xie responded and remained silent for a few seconds with a bitter smile, saying, "Let's seize the time." I sighed inwardly. He regretted it a long time ago, but the question is where to buy regret medicine. Anning gave Wu Xie a deep glance, turned around and walked towards the ship, coldly throwing down a sentence, "I won't say anything more, I pray everything goes smoothly on the journey. The things in the cabin are piled up like a mountain, and if you don't pay attention, you can easily stumble. Judging from the situation, time is quite tight, so you have to lift them up all at once. Xiao Qinchin, wait for me." Wu Xie saw Bai Chen walking ahead, afraid that he might accidentally be hit by the crew. He quickly took a few steps forward and grabbed his arm, whispering, "The ship is not like land. Don't run around when you set sail later, be careful not to fall into the sea." What do you think I'm doing?" After Wu Xie finished speaking, he noticed that Bai Chen looked up at him with a very strange look in his eyes. He said something unpleasant, as if he was looking at a fool. Sigh. Bai Chen shook his head and reached out to gently pat Wu Xie, sighing with resentment. "Big nephew, we haven't been in touch for a few months. Why are you a bit senile? You can't even talk through your head. What background did you forget about our Bai family? The things in the water are also considered a matter. I'm really worried about my uncle." Bai Chen threw down this sentence and continued walking forward with his small hands on his back, shaking his head in head. The young figure walked out of his 70s and 80s. Wu Xie. After a moment, he suddenly patted his forehead. "Concealed roast that he really cares is chaotic. Just worrying about my younger uncle Bai Chen's young age, I completely forget that my maternal family is not from an ordinary family background. If my grandfather is playing in the dirt, then my grandfather's family is playing in the water. Speaking of catching turtles in the 5 seas, it's a bit boastful, but Haiqing too is not lacking in going out to play. It's just a pity that my old lady is focused on her studies and addicted to scientific research, unable to extricate herself from it. She doesn't even want to inherit the family business, so she hasn't figured it out for herself." Bai Chen currently has no time to pay attention to the psychological state of his eldest nephew, and his mind is full of thoughts on how to perfectly complete the task. "Due to height issues and too many items on board, I accidentally collided with a person in front of me. Ouch." Bai Chen covered his forehead and took a half step back, unable to help but complain that the system was too unreliable. If it weren't for the dog system not emphasizing martial arts and turning oneself into a child, relying on one's previous life's height of over 1.8 meters, one could still easily bump into one's head. Now that everything is fine, the brain melon seed will be injured first when encountering problems. As he was feeling frustrated and depressed, a middle-aged man's voice suddenly came from above his head, "Child, who are you from? How can you run around on the boat? How dangerous. What if so many things fall and hit you?" A circle of question marks appeared on Bai Chen's head. "Did you make a mistake? Who ran around recklessly? Walking well on your own, even if you don't walk long, your eyes will bump into you. How can we rake it upside down?" He was feeling unhappy and planned to see who was so bold as to open his eyes and tell the truth. Looking up. "Good guy, almost blinded my eyes. I'll strangle it. Who is it? Is the melon seed on the head smeared with oil? The brightness is too exaggerated, it's comparable to a 200-degree headlight bubble under the reflection of sunlight." Bai Chen rubbed his eyes and quickly crawled to the side, complaining in a low voice, "Oh my goodness, it's too smooth. The sunlight seems to be splitting." Kid, are you talking about me?" The voice rang out again, with a hint of awkwardness mixed in the tone. "Of course, there's no one else next to me." Bai Chen rubbed his eyes twice again, then took a moment to look forward. When he saw the appearance of the person in front of him clearly, his pupils suddenly dilated and he stood there dumbfounded. It's not that this person is handsome or ugly, but rather that the hair on top of his head is too distinctive. It can be said that his brain is divided into 3 parts at the top, with a clear distinction between them and no one interfering with each other. Although there are not many loose hairs on the left side, at least they are all black. On the right side, there is a slight difference, with black and white intermingled and disorderly on top. The most distinctive feature is the middle part, which is almost barren like saline alkali land. And what causes discomfort in the eyes of the white dust is precisely this short hair in the middle area. I'm really sorry, kid. Maybe I misunderstood. I was just thinking about the problem and didn't look down. It was an accident to bump into you. Bai Chen looked at the man's mouth opening and closing, and the corners of his eyes couldn't help but twitch a few times. Brother, do you want to be so dedicated? Are you really not burdened with idols at all? That's right. Bai Chen immediately confirmed that the nagging saline alkali land in front of him was the famous male god Zhang. Although it is mentioned in the book that when Zhang played Zhang Tuzi, he was a talkative person, most of them did not provide a detailed explanation. At present, Bai Chen has completely realized what wearing a mask means not being human. What's more than nagging? The spitting stars sprayed themselves from top to bottom like heavy rain. Xiaochen, are you okay? Wu Xie was delayed for a few minutes after chatting with the crew, and when he turned around, he saw Bai Chen standing directly opposite a stranger. He was afraid that Bai Chen would suffer losses, so he immediately took a few steps forward and pulled someone behind him. He turned his head to look at Zhang Tuzi with a cold face and said, "Just tell me what you have. He is still a child, and if you offend him, I will apologize to him." "No, little brother misunderstood." Zhang Tuzi waved his hand repeatedly and spoke out in a series, "Misunderstanding, it's all misunderstandings. It's because I didn't notice the little friend." Chapter 5. Lin Daiyu's Warm Wine / Huaxiong. You are listening at novel full.audio. Xiaochen, is that so? Wu Xie doesn't believe the other party's statement at all. Don't look at them claiming to be an international ocean trading company. How many good guys can actually join in with their own uncle? On the surface, he looks like a dog, but behind the scenes, he knows if he's full of male thieves and female prostitutes. Wu Xie is now like an old hen guarding a calf, almost carrying Bai Chen in her pocket to feel a bit at ease. There's no way, it's purely a practice. When Mrs. Bai gave birth to Bai Chen, she was old and her body recovered slowly. In terms of care, almost all of them were taken care of by Mr. and Mrs. Wu. Although considered siblings by blood, he is actually treated completely as his own youngest son. It can be said that Wu Xie and his wife are the second biological parents of Bai Chen. Wu Xie also showed great affection towards Bai Chen. Whenever he comes home from vacation, he carries him back and forth, and when he meets his classmates while shopping, he mistakenly thinks he is unmarried and has children. Until later, the old man Bai couldn't bear to watch and carried Bai Chen to learn something. The two talents haven't met for 2 years and occasionally make phone calls for communication. He truly despises Bai Chen for obstructing things. But once someone bullies Bai Chen, Wu Xie will definitely be the first to rush out to protect her little uncle. Well, it's all a misunderstanding. Bai Chen suddenly realized that he couldn't speak recklessly and provoke conflicts. If the eldest nephew gets into a fight with Zhang Qilin due to his own reasons, how can he turn around and come back? Wu Xie saw Bai Chen nod and breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. "I'm sorry, I overreacted. Please forgive me," he said in an instant as he turned his head to face Zhang Tuzi again. "It's okay, it's all a misunderstanding." The ship is about to depart. Anning's voice came from the bow of the ship. "Mr. Zhang, could you please come over here? I have something to discuss with you." "Mr. Wu, the crew lounge is located at the bottom right. Please put your luggage over first, and I will discuss the specific matters with you later." "Okay, we'll be here soon." Zhang Tuzi stretched his neck and responded with a smile, then extended his right hand to Wu Xie and said, "Oh, I really don't know each other. So you are Mr. Wu that Miss Ning is waiting for?" "It was a misunderstanding just now. My surname is Zhang, and my full name is Zhang Hao. Please give me more guidance in the future. As the saying goes, reach out and don't hit a smiling person. No matter how the other party looks, actively showing kindness to oneself cannot help but save face." Wu Xie reached out and lightly grasped it before quickly retracting it. "My surname is Wu Xie, please give me more guidance." "Okay, I'll get busy first. Mr. Wu will talk later," Zhang Tuzi said, then lowered his head and grinned at Bai Chen. "Children, I'll see you soon." Bai Chen grinned and waved at Zhang Tuzi. "Uncle, I'll see you soon. Isn't it just pretending?" Bai Chen believes he will not lose to anyone. Having been pretending to be a child for many years indicates that one definitely has a talent for acting. Zhang Tuzi turned around and left. I don't know what I thought, but I turned around and blew a kiss at the two of them. The two watched Zhang Tuzi leave, but unfortunately, the sunlight once again shone on the saline alkali land. In an instant, Wu Xie also experienced what it meant to have golden eyes shining brightly. The two nephews and uncles looked at each other. At the same time, a thought emerged in his heart. He must be sick. Just as Wu Xie was settled, he was called away by the crew, saying that Miss Anning had something to discuss with him. Bai Chen wanted to follow and listen, but Wu Xie decisively agreed. Since seeing a group of rough crew members and Zhang Tuzi's unique appearance, Wu Xie said that she didn't trust anything and let Bai Chen be alone. "I'm afraid they'll kidnap and sell Bai Chen." Mechanical room rear compartment. Anning was sitting on the dark bed board talking to Zhang Tuzi when he heard footsteps and looked up. Seeing Wu Xie walking in with Bai Chen, he couldn't help but furrow his brows and his tone was mixed with a hint of criticism. "Mr. Wu, I came with you to discuss rescue work. Would it be inconvenient to have a child?" As soon as Anning finished speaking, Bai Chen immediately realized that he could never be treated like a child. There are numerous crises at sea, and if you don't show your skills, won't everything be restricted next? His eyes rolled, and a steel pipe from the bed not far away entered his eye. Without a word, Bai Chen stepped forward to pick up the steel pipe and shook it twice in his hand. Anning was stunned for a moment, then turned his head and looked at Wu Xie inexplicably, wanting to ask what this little guy was up to. But Wu Xie's eyes also showed a hint of confusion. She could only cough lightly and take the initiative to ask, "Child, what do you want to do?" Bai Chen held both ends of the iron pipe with both hands and looked at Anning with a slight smile. "Beautiful sister, I just want to prove that I am not a child." After speaking, with both arms exerting force, the steel pipe gradually bent and eventually became the steering wheel. It seems effortless to look at the posture. Don't say Anning is dumbfounded, Wu Xie is completely disorganized. He stood there with a bewildered expression, staring blankly at the steel pipe in Bai Chen's hand, unable to believe his own eyes. Is it an illusion? Isn't Xiaochen only 10 years old? Is this guy in front of me who looks like a Popeye really my own little uncle? It is not an exaggeration to say that Bai Chenlu's move can be considered as breaking Wu Xie's habitual impression of him. To put it another way of metaphor, the shock it brings is no less than Lin Daiyu's warm wine slaying Huaxiong. Bai Chen seems to feel that the shock it brings is not enough. Once again, straighten the bent steel pipe. As the saying goes, it is easy to bend but difficult to straighten. Moreover, it is even more difficult for adult elbow-sized steel pipes. Bai Chen restored the steel pipe to its original state and casually threw it back onto the wooden bed. The steel pipe collided with the bed frame with a clanging sound. The sound was clear and crisp, instantly pulling Wu Xie back from her confused state. He swallowed his saliva. I walked over and held the steel pipe in my hand, wanting to confirm if this thing is plastic. Although reality is in front of me, I always feel like I'm dreaming in my heart. When did the little guy who used to wet himself become so awesome? The fact gave him a hard slap. The steel pipe is both real and heavy, absolutely made of pure steel. How about it? Do you still think I'm a child? Bai Chen snorted with his hands behind his back, looking up at his small neck. It said that once an expert makes a move, they know if they have it. Beautiful sister, what do you think of my move? Good strength, Anning raised an eyebrow. It's really beyond my expectations, but sometimes strength doesn't represent everything. Children, if you want to gain recognition, this alone is not enough. Otherwise, they are all human sperm. Based solely on Bai Chen's words and actions, Anning could tell that this kid was eager to show himself. Bai Chen tilted his head and thought for a moment, then grinned and revealed his small white teeth. With it, I can still be a matchmaker. I wonder if the pretty girl has a boyfriend. Do you think my nephew is good at it? Wu Xie. Chapter 6. Proud Zhang Tuzi. You are listening at novel full.audio. A person without face is invincible in the world. In order to complete the task, Bai Chen completely spared his eldest nephew. He stared at Anning calmly on the surface, but occasionally glanced at Zhang Baldy. Always observe the other person's reaction. If the situation is not right, be sure to pull Wu Xie and run away as soon as possible. No wonder he is so cautious, he has been brainwashed. I still remember in my past life, my desk mate was like a crazy demon, constantly knocking on CP. I found myself reading tomb rating notes like a husky who had taken a stimulant. Tell yourself about various CP combinations at any time, and even get an official match for those few dogs from Wu Xie's family. Now that you have fallen into the world of tomb raids, whether true or false, take preventive measures. Child, you're a bit worried. Anning lightly raised her chin and glanced at Wu with a hint of disdain in her expression. The corners of her mouth curved slightly and she sneered, Mr. Wu's methods of flirting with girls are a bit outdated. If you want to pursue someone, you should learn more moves. I hooked you up. Wu Xie's eyes widened wide. He stretched his neck as if it were a big goose being choked, trembling and pointing at his nose, making a loud roar, when am I going to chase you? If not, then not. Alright, let's get down to business. Anning didn't intend to continue the topic and said to Bai Chen with a stern face, Child, you can listen if you want, but I hope you don't cause trouble. Don't worry, I only wear my ears. Bai Chen shrugged his shoulders. Wu Xie, who was full of anger as he turned around, sat on the bedsheet next to him. Some things cannot be done too hastily, as long as you do not exclude yourself. Otherwise, finding a way to eavesdrop would be a troublesome matter. It's just that I'm a bit sorry for my eldest nephew, who has been wronged. Forget it. It's no big deal. I'll easily grab more green hair for him this time, so I can't even afford to open a small shop and pay for electricity. Anning picked up a document and handed it over, saying expressionlessly, Mr. Wu, here is our itinerary and related equipment list. You can take a look and have a clear understanding. If you feel there are any shortcomings, please remind me. We will replenish the materials midway so that I can have someone prepare in advance. Wu slanted over and took a few glances. Good guy, the thick stack almost caught up with the British dictionary. Not only that, the entire text above is filled with professional English words. It's okay to read it individually, but when combined together, I really can't understand what it means. It can be said that there is no professional level 8, and I feel dizzy after just a few glances. Bai Chen gave up decisively after taking a glance. Life is short, why bother yourself? With so much paper, it can take up to half a month to use the restroom, even if you're running errands. Who can read it all in one go? Furthermore, I don't even need to read the operation manual. With the mechanical ability gained from completing tasks in 2 years, various equipment can be used with just a few taps to achieve a clear understanding. Wu Xie is not someone who pretends to understand without understanding. He handed the information back to Anning and shook his head with a bitter smile. Sorry, the content is too professional and beyond my knowledge. Oh. What industry does Mr. Wu specifically work in? Zhang Tuzi took the conversation and said something unpleasant with a curious expression on his face. I can't even understand the information, how could I participate in such a big international project? Isn't it a delay at a critical moment? What you said was too embarrassing. It is said that hitting people does not make a face, and cursing does not expose faults. What is the difference between saying in person that it will drag you down and pointing fingers at you and cursing you for being useless? Wu Xie's face looked a bit ugly, and he wanted to retort, but was stopped by Bai Chen. Don't be angry, nephew. What this uncle said is not wrong, after all, as the saying goes, long hair has short knowledge, and our black hair really can't compare to the radiance of an uncle. You see, there isn't a crease on uncle's head, it should be because he has too much knowledge and is too full. Wu Xie's heart was filled with pleasure as she pointed at the mulberry leaves and cursed the locust trees. She nodded in agreement and said, it makes sense, it seems that I am superficial. Too much, you guys are too much. Zhang Tuzi seemed to have suffered a great humiliation, waving his arms in an exaggerated manner, and then stood up and left the room with a fit of anger. Bai Chen looked at his departing figure and felt as if he had been hit hard like a thunderbolt. Breaking the brain makes it impossible to think. Can Zhang Qilin completely release himself by wearing a human skin mask? No wonder people say that sulky people have two faces. Can one not eat pigs without butcher Zhang? Anning didn't seem to care about Zhang Tuzi's departure and still introduced the situation without changing his expression. Through Anning's narration, Wu Xie finally understood the specific situation. Daring uncle is determined to enter the underwater tomb again. It's just that the incident happened suddenly back then. When he came out, he was in a coma and couldn't remember the specific location for a moment. Recently, after various discussions, approximately 4 to 5 locations have been identified. You should know that the sea does not have many reference points compared to land, which is already a very impressive thing. It's just that good luck didn't always favor him. The tomb should have been found, but the person also disappeared. The house leaks, but it rains continuously at night. Even worse, due to a storm at sea, the signal disappeared before the last contact with the other party could reveal the specific location. I never got in touch again afterwards. What they need to do now is to search for their traces one by one along several sea areas at the fastest speed. At the same time, we also need to compete against time with the half-month-long sea storm. Once there is a problem at a certain stage, all they can do is burn some paper for Wu Sanxing every other time. Wu Xie frowned and remained silent, staring straight at the nautical chart on the table. The worries in his heart weighed down like a mountain of 5 fingers, making it difficult for him to catch his breath. Bai Chen noticed this situation and extended his right hand to comfort Wu Xie's shoulder. However, height is a hard injury. I noticed that it was a bit difficult, so I gave up on this idea. Don't worry, Wu Sangu is just missing and not ascending to heaven. If he sees your expression, he will curse you to death, he said, standing up decisively and pouncing on Wu Xie's body. It's okay to have me around. He vigorously patted Wu Xie's shoulder with his right hand, making a clanging sound like smashing iron, causing Wu Xie's head to buzz. But it was really useful, as it shook away Wu Xie's worries. Are you really his uncle? Anning raised her eyebrows and glanced at the two, her eyes filled with curiosity. Before she came here, she had investigated the situation of the Wu family, but she had never heard of Wu Xie having such a small uncle. It seems that some things still need to be thoroughly explored. If it's a fake package exchange. Bai Chen tilted his head slightly to the right and leaned against Wu Xie, smiling as he said, my nephew looks like an uncle. Do you think we don't look like each other? Anning took a closer look, not to mention that they were indeed very similar. She was just about to say a few words when the ship suddenly shook violently. All the items on the bed with high vibration amplitude fell to the ground. Chapter 7. Maritime Storms. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Miss Anning, the weather has changed outside. The crew shouted while holding on to the hatch, the supplies are not fixed yet, we need help with them. The ship's body swayed more and more violently during the conversation. There was a clattering sound coming from outside the cabin, and without any accident, it was likely that objects had collapsed and collided with each other. Wu Xie lives on land all year round and rarely parades at sea by boat. Not to mention encountering such strong winds. I couldn't stand steadily for a moment, and my body tilted and ran towards the bed frame, colliding with it. The direction of falling is a bit awkward. A few iron pipes were placed on the side and protruded before they could be tidied up. If you really hit it hard. Even if there is no bleeding or injury, there must be a few bruises on the waist. Bai Chen was quick-witted and grabbed Wu Xie's waist belt. One arm forcefully pulled the person to the side. Before the two of them could breathe a sigh of relief, there was an unexpected silence. Just hear a click. Wu Xie's body tilted backwards again as the ship swayed. I'll strangle it. Bai Chen grabbed the broken belt, his eyes almost widened. I thought Wu Xie had no money in his pocket. Even if you don't have the money, you wouldn't be able to buy a belt with such poor quality, right? He barely stood firm and reached out to pull. Finally, at the last moment, I grabbed Wu Xie's arm. Anning glanced at Wu Xie with an indescribable expression. Seemingly wanting to laugh but feeling bad, he bit his lower lip and tried to remain calm, saying, Mr. Wu, we need manpower on the ship. I'll go over first, and it's best for you to come and help after you finish. After speaking, hurriedly walked out of the cabin. Wu Xie held her pants tightly in her right hand, blushing like a cooked shrimp. Big nephew, you. Sigh, you are really. As an adult in their 20s, can't even afford a good belt. Is it embarrassing at critical moments? I'm really worried about my uncle. What will you do in the future like this? Bai Chen took out his elder demeanor and let out a long sigh, putting on a demeanor of 70 or 80 years old and seeing that his descendants were not up to par. Wu Xie couldn't utter a word of criticism. Can you still tell Bai Chen that all his money has been spent and there is only the fuel money left in his pocket? Forget it. He really can't afford to lose this person. Bai Chen still understands the principle of stopping when things are good. He glanced diagonally at Wu Xie's expression, which was a bit ugly. He immediately pulled off his waist belt and handed it over, change it quickly so that we can go out and see what the situation is. If we really encounter a big storm, there may be some changes in the plan. Give me the belt, what will you do? Wu Xie didn't tie it up immediately, but looked at Bai Chen with a worried expression. If he's an adult old man, he should be ashamed. Moreover, there is probably no one paying attention to the chaotic situation on the ship. But children are different. A 10-year-old child is in a time of saving face. What if someone mocks you? What should Xiaochen do if she experiences psychological shadows? Hurry up, don't waste your time. Bai Chen reached out and pushed Wu Xie, then proudly tugged at his pants. Hee, I have double safety on top of this, and there is also a rope inside. There will definitely be no situation like yours. If that's the case, why bother hesitating? Wu Xie tied the belt 3 times and then pulled Bai Chen out. The wind and waves are getting bigger and bigger. The deck was bustling with people coming and going. A pile of objects fell on the ground in all directions, moving back and forth with the violent shaking of the ship's hull. The captain of the ship took the sailors with ropes and fixed supplies racing against time. Zhang Tuzi fixed the box, and Anning tied the rope. The two of them seemed to cooperate quite well. Xiaochen, please don't move around and hold on to the handrail. I'll go over and help. Wu Xie looked at the busy situation around her and lowered her head to remind her to come forward and help. Pull it down. Bai Chen grabbed his arm and rolled his eyes. You better stay honest. I don't want to jump into the sea and catch people later. After finishing speaking, he exerted 1,000 pounds of weight and quickly charged up to stabilize his body. Lift the fallen box with one hand and skillfully tie it with ropes. The speed is even faster than the sailors working nearby. Wu Xie was almost bewildered, her mouth involuntarily turning into an O. shape, or maybe there's a chance. A big wave hit, and the fishing boat tilted towards the turbid sea water, pouring Wu Xie like a drowned rat. Wu Xie didn't have time to close her mouth and swallowed several mouthfuls of seawater. It took me a while to recover from the salty and unpleasant feeling. As I looked up, I saw the captain hurriedly walking towards the cockpit at the bow of the ship and shouting loudly, "Master, what's the situation now? Does the wind and waves affect the route? Storm, danger." The captain looked very ugly. I intended to ignore it, but after some thought, I decided to stop. He sighed and explained in Mandarin, "The world is vast and dangerous. We cannot continue on our journey, we must find a reef to avoid the wind." After speaking, he hurriedly left. Big world. Wu Xie didn't understand anything for a while, but seeing the anxious expression on the captain's face, he also understood that it was not a good thing. My heart suddenly became tense. The sea is not as good as the land. When encountering a dangerous situation, there is no chance to even avoid it. The sky became increasingly gloomy, and thunder echoed in the distance. Both fools can understand that a storm is about to hit the sea. Wu Xie's heart was burning with anxiety. My third uncle's situation is unknown, and rescuing him 1 minute earlier adds a glimmer of hope. Once the route is changed. What's delayed is not time, but life. Mr. Wu, don't be stunned, come and help me quickly. Anning turned around and saw Wu Xie standing beside him dumbfounded. He quickly waved his hand at him and said, "Time is running out, a storm is coming soon. Hurry up and help fix the equipment and supplies. Here we go." Wu Xie saw that Zhang Tuzi was not afraid of the storm, so he gritted his teeth, took off his shoes, and rushed forward. Everyone is frantically competing with nature for time. The storm came quite quickly. The material on the deck has not been fixed yet, and the dark clouds in the sky have begun to drip rain. The seawater is as black as ink, making people feel cold all over. A 7-ton fishing boat is at risk of capsizing in the tumultuous waves, constantly moving up and down. Bai Chen didn't feel much. He comes from a water family. When the old man saw his daughter, he had no intention of inheriting the craft. I originally wanted to inherit the family business from a collateral child, but I didn't expect that my old son would have the precious heart of Bai Chen. Being overjoyed is not enough to describe the mood at that time. If it weren't for Mrs. Bai feeling embarrassed and stopping him, I'm afraid the cats and dogs in the community would have known that he has an heir. As the saying goes, cultivating children should start from a young age. The old man Bai was too excited and threw his child into the water just after his full moon. Fortunately, Wu Xie and his wife came to take care of the elderly and quickly rescued the child, otherwise there might have been some family tragedy. The old man Bai was scolded by his wife and was scolded by his daughter, making him unable to lift his head. Humbly carrying his son.In.law Wu Xie, he squatted in the study drinking a small drink. Go on, go on. Finally, I waited until Bai Chen turned 1 year old. The old man Bai has once again launched a plan to cultivate seafood. Chapter 8. Money for Rescue. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Bai Jingtian is determined to cultivate Bai Chen into the best inheritor. In terms of water quality, it's almost like staying in a bathtub. Antique cultural relics are explained to him as soon as he is sensible, and it is necessary to cultivate his literary literacy from a young age. As the old saying goes, the extreme will bring the opposite. Bai Chen likes to play in water, but he doesn't like reading. In the later stage, it hurts to see old Bai holding a book. To avoid either pretending to be sick or being a scoundrel, or rolling on the ground and crying for mom and sister. To put it now, it is appropriate to say that it is a bare child. Due to the obstruction of two large mountains, my old wife and daughter. The old man Bai was so angry that his heart, liver, spleen, and lungs were hurting everywhere, but he had no way to deal with Bai Chen. I can only comfort myself in my heart. The child is still young, as long as they are old. The situation did not completely change until 2 years ago. Bai Chen returned home from the ancient tomb, neither crying nor making a fuss, holding on to a book and reading endlessly. Startled by Jing Tian to think that his son had fallen for evil. It wasn't until I was scolded by the old lady again that I suddenly realized my son was sensible. The happy old man almost went back to kowtow a few heads to the old man's body. Nowadays, Bai Chen has been trained by an old man, and with the water skills he has gained from the system, he is even more adept at dealing with waves. He stood on the deck as if walking flat, bundling supplies like playing. The skillful posture is even more powerful than that of a seasoned veteran. Anning looked back at this place more than once, his gaze changing from casual to thoughtful. Bai Chen doesn't care about exposing his abilities. After all, I am young now. If there is no more ability, others will not treat him as a dish. As long as it is controlled within an appropriate range and not treated as a monster by others. As the saying goes, there are clouds, and the sky is full of unpredictable winds and clouds. People have extremely bad luck. The supplies have not been finished yet, and the engine has encountered problems again. Fishing boats have been in use for a long time. Even if some areas have undergone renovations, they cannot withstand a short period of time without undergoing multiple rounds of testing. Just now, the ship tilted and poured seawater backwards, directly stalling one of the engines. The captain was so anxious that he almost scratched the wall. The rain is getting heavier, and if we don't find a way to speed up and find a safe haven, we can imagine what we will face next. Miss Ning. The captain hurriedly approached and wiped the rain off his face, saying urgently, "Can you ask your technical staff to come and help?" Anning is not an ordinary woman, she is quite thorough in her work and has long anticipated various crises at sea. Her team includes not only experts in history and geology, but also technical experts in repairing machines. Featuring a complete set. She saw the captain's face look very ugly, and her heart thumped, suddenly realizing that she had encountered a big problem. Immediately turning his head back, he shouted loudly, "Wang Fei, hurry over and help." Understood. A man in his 30s immediately put down the box and stumbled along with the captain, running backwards. The deck is too slippery. In a moment of urgency, without paying attention to my feet, I stumbled backwards in a sand-falling goose pose. Rush straight towards Anning. The speed is fast and fast, like a shell. The incident suddenly occurred, and Anning turned his back to the other party without even noticing this situation. Suddenly hit head-on. Just as the big waves hit, the ship's hull tilted almost 30 degrees. The two of them rolled and collided towards the edge of the boat. Instinctively pull back and forth with both hands, trying to grab something and stabilize the body. Except for a few unsecured boxes, there is nothing that can keep them balanced. Seeing it about to fall into the sea, Bai Chen made a move. He rushed forward with one swift step. Grasp the iron ring on the side of the ship with your left hand to stabilize your body, and extend your right hand to grab Anning's neck. Kicked Wang Fei with one foot. Kicked the person cleanly towards Zhang Qilin. He doesn't believe it anymore. Will this guy continue to act in times of crisis? Wu Xie's voice was hoarse as she nervously grabbed the iron ring and dared not let go. The huge waves kept rolling, continuously throwing the ship up and down. It can be said that the most dangerous jumping machine cannot catch up with this kind of scene stimulation. Thank you, child. Anning stood up with the help of Bai Chen's strength and grabbed the iron ring, barely stabilizing his body. There was a hint of fear on his face. I'm not joking. Once that situation falls into the sea, it is almost a near-death situation. How many people can sacrifice their lives to save others who are too busy for themselves? It's a small idea. Bai Chen waved his hand and said nonchalantly, the situation will be calm for a while. Just calculate the rescue cost together. Anning. Looking at Anning's slightly stunned expression, Bai Chen secretly chuckled to himself. He is not an idiot, he will be deceived by Anning. Having read tomb raiding novels, he has a profound understanding of Anning. This lady is not easy to mess with. Carrying a group of foreigners up the mountains and down the sea of fire, specifically flipping through the coffin boards of our ancestors. It is called seeking the path of immortality. However, Bai Chen did not think so. He felt that Anning seemed to be working part-time as a watchdog for his ancestors. Otherwise, why is she always safe and sound every time? Filial piety. Too filial. Earn foreign money and be filial to our domestic ancestors. Since that's the case, can I still be soft-hearted? Earning more is a point. At least pay some water and electricity bills to the eldest nephew. On the other end, Zhang Qilin lived up to expectations and stopped Wang Fei. But he seems to be addicted to acting. Shouting incessantly with a forced posture. Bai Chen secretly picked up his thumb. What an actor. I can act mute and pretend to be talkative. Indeed, I have lived for a long time, and all my skills have been illuminated. Next, it's almost a battle against the waves. Most of the supplies were tied to the iron rings on the deck with ropes, and a small portion of them rushed into the sea without being able to handle them in time. There were ups and downs on the surface, and many supplies were falling. The technician in charge of managing the instruments, Muzi, stomped his feet in pain. What should I do if I lose something that I need to use later? He grabbed the sailor on the side. Let him use a hook to salvage supplies. Nonsense. The captain waved his hand and shouted angrily, do you understand the rules? The thing that fell into the sea is for the Dragon Prince. Do you dare to fight the Dragon Prince for something and still want to die? That's our rescue supplies. Muzi Qi loudly retorted, what kind of Dragon Prince is all absurd feudal superstition? As soon as the words were spoken, they immediately aroused public anger. The crew on the deck looked at him with disgust, wishing to throw him into the sea and pray for the Dragon King's forgiveness. The wind and rain have become even stronger. The huge waves raised almost reached 10 meters. The captain shouted to everyone to enter the cabin, never stand on the deck, it's too dangerous. It's easy to say, but too difficult to do. Even if I tried my best to grab the iron ring, I could only rub forward bit by bit. At this moment, a sailor roared and shouted, Captain, there's a situation on the sea. It's all blood. Everyone quickly looked out along with the sound. As far as the eyes could see around the hull, it was a patch of red. Chapter 9. Yin Yang Sea. You are listening at novel full.audio. The captain's face changed again and again, and even the fast Sichuan opera's face changed, feeling inferior. Kneeling down on the deck with a soft thump, he kowtowed to the sea with a murmur in his mouth. Lord Dragon, please spare your life. We really didn't mean to offend you, we just passed by this place. Please don't get angry. I have both elderly and young, and my entire family relies on me for survival. Please spare me and I will send you offerings when I return. When others saw this situation, their hearts also became chaotic. When he arrived, he knew he would encounter various troubles, but it was true that he did not expect to encounter a crisis shortly after the ship had sailed. It's too unlucky, the whole team didn't start well. Bai Chen felt a little nervous when he saw the captain looking like he was possessed by evil. Although he may seem indifferent on the surface, he has never actually experienced such an exaggerated storm. The old man Bai gave birth to a son in his old age, hoping to cultivate a good heir, but he is also afraid that his son's young age may cause accidents. Take him to rivers and lakes at most, but don't dare to take him to the sea. More emphasis is placed on theoretical knowledge. To be honest, if it weren't for the system's unethical punishment, Bai Chen would have had to endure for 2 years to emerge. Nowadays, it's purely about chasing ducks onto the shelves. He wants to see what exactly happened. It's just a hard injury right now. Grasping the iron ring, unable to see the outside situation, I could only tiptoe and stretch my neck, trying my best to look out. When I saw the situation on the sea surface clearly, my heart froze. The 3 words Yin Yang Sea suddenly came to mind. He didn't care about anything else, immediately released the iron ring and rushed behind the captain, giving him a hard kick on his buttocks. Still kowtowing your head. He cursed with resentment, if you don't speed up your departure, it will be someone else kowtowing to you during holidays and festivals in the future, even kowtowing to the seaside. Awakened the dreamer with a startled kick. The captain climbed up from the deck and shouted at a group of silly crew members standing on the deck, "Quick, speed up, charge out from the southwest direction. No one wants to die here." The crew gritted their rear teeth and vigorously ran back and forth on the ship, roaring. At this moment, the darkness is like an ink fountain. The flickering lightning above the sky is like sparks exposed by old broken wires. Sparkling incessantly, it foreshadows that what will happen next may not be good. Several experts in Anning's team were so frightened by the sight in front of them that they couldn't speak fluently. The ancient person in charge of cultural relic appraisal lived on land for his first life, and this time he came mainly to broaden his horizons and fulfill his wishes. I never expected to suddenly encounter such a big storm, and the feeling of seasickness couldn't be controlled. His face turned blue and purple, as if he had been choked by someone but was bleeding. He held the iron ring with his right hand and spat out uncontrollably like a fountain in his mouth. Vomiting is a true infection in humans. Wu Xie was drenched all over by the waves, and her stomach was still barely suppressed. As soon as I saw this scene, I couldn't control the switch and looked up at a 45-degree angle to spray. Due to excessive force, the vomit vomited like a fountain, and not far away, Zhang Bald's face was covered. In an instant, several green vegetable leaves were planted on the bare saline alkali land. I'll make a big move. The great-nephew's courage is commendable. Bai Chen's eyes widened like glass balls, making him burst into laughter. Even if the current situation is extremely critical, it is too funny to resist this scene. What surprised Bai Chen even more was Zhang Tuzi's reaction to this. He seemed to be afraid of being discovered, deliberately shaking his bald head with force and muttering loudly in very fluent Mandarin, "Oh my, what the hell is going on? It's really too much. Hug, vomit." Wu Xie didn't spit out a single word, but his stomach was the first to spit it out. "Oh, you're still here." Zhang Tuzi looked disdainful and dodged to the side. "The waves are getting bigger and bigger. I don't know if fish are expensive, but the ship seems to be falling apart." Bai Chen was afraid that Wu Xie might accidentally fall into the sea, so he shouted at the top of his voice, "Big nephew, please stabilize yourself. Uncle will come to help you right away." As soon as the words fell, a crew member on the deck suddenly pointed to the sea and let out a heart-wrenching scream, "Ah ah." The heads are all green and shiny. The crowd on the deck suddenly became agitated. They all poked their heads and looked outside, followed by more screams, "Ah, it's really a green head. What kind of animal is this? How could there be so many? Captain, our route is blocked, what should we do?" "Don't cause trouble if you don't know how to water, hurry into the cabin to save your life." There are all sorts of people shouting and flustered, not knowing where to put their hands and feet. As the saying goes, when busy, trouble arises. Computer engineer Wu Yong was swept away by a big wave. "Help. Wu will never see you again." The foreign ship doctor was frightened and shouted for help at the top of his voice. But currently, how could anyone take such an unnecessary step? Are you willing to sacrifice your life to save someone, even though you are watching your own life go by? Don't joke anymore. Foreigners see no one paying attention to themselves and rely on their tall stature to try their best. As a result, even bigger waves rolled up and he fell on the deck. The foreigner disregarded the pain and wanted to stand up desperately. Unfortunately, the ship's body shook violently, and people not only couldn't get up, but also slid down with the water flow towards the ship. If one really falls into the sea, the outcome can be imagined. He waved his hands desperately, hoping to grab something to stabilize his body. The good news is that he grabbed one leg with his right hand, and the bad news is that he grabbed Wu Xie's right leg. With a large tilt of the ship's hull, the two of them rolled and fell into the sea. Bai Chen stood at a slight distance from Wu Xie, watching helplessly as his nephew was tricked. Lying trough. In shock, he hesitated to use polite language and blurted out his national essence. The ocean waves and undercurrents surge. All that catches the eye are green and watermelon-like skulls. As the saying goes, red and green sing big plays. Bai Chen is not sure what the blood-red seawater and green head are going to perform. He wants to accelerate his speed to find Wu Xie's trace now. Fortunately, the ability of the water monkey is not a joke. Bai Chen stomped on the water with both feet, stretched his neck and looked around. Apart from a pile of watermelon-like heads, he didn't even see the shadow of Wu Xie. He didn't give up and took a deep breath, followed by a fierce thrust, diving into the sea. A school of fish with strange shapes churned their ugly and deformed bodies underwater, stirring the blood-red seawater to a murky state. Bai Chen worked hard to open his eyes and carefully searched for Wu Xie's figure. Despite searching for half a day, there was still nothing to be gained. Bai Chen never gives up. He made several trips at sea and underwater. Finally, the effort paid off to the person with the intention, and from 30 meters away, I saw Wu Xie's little head. Just a tip popped up. With a bit of effort, another wave was quickly pushed underwater. Chapter 10. Saving People at Sea. You are listening at novel-full.audio. My goodness. Bai Chen felt bitter in his heart. Waves come one after another, entangled and forming larger eddies. He completely let go of his efforts to save people. With both feet vigorously swinging, the speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to see the movements clearly when stepping on a sewing machine, afraid that if it slowed down a bit, Wu Xie would be swept further by the seawater. The ability of water squirrels is not limited. Bai Chen was even more agile than a fish in the sea, and quickly charged towards Wu Xie's last appearance. No matter how agile one's skills are, they cannot withstand too many obstacles. The ugly head blocked in front of him, pushing away a group of horses rushing towards him. The red seawater swept in, and everything in sight was red. It makes people wonder if they have been thrown into the tomato soup pot at this moment. And the green head floating above is cabbage. Bai Chen tried his best to get closer and closer to Wu Xie's position, and even saw a little black hair in the lush greenery. He finally put his hanging heart back a bit, stretched his neck and shouted loudly, "Is your nephew still alive? Can you spit a bubble?" The voice was very loud, but the thunder in the sky couldn't withstand it, and it was momentarily suppressed. Bai Chen saw that Wu Xie had no reaction, and his heart, which had just been relieved, was once again raised in his throat. The short legs thumped again. Otherwise, there is indeed a hint of evil aura on Wu Xie's body. A group of people stood on the deck. Although others were crying, feeling seasick, and vomiting, only he was possessed by the unlucky ghost and dragged into the water. The foreigner had a strong desire for survival and held on to Wu Xie without letting go. His right leg was firmly held by the foreigner, and he couldn't even take a breath before being dragged into the sea and filled himself with red seawater. What's even more frustrating is that my head is constantly being hit by the green head, feeling dizzy like knocking on a wooden fish, and my mind is buzzing with melon seeds. Wu Xie's remaining rationality reminded him that he must get rid of the current predicament as soon as possible, otherwise he might end up dying before winning the battle. There's no way. Now Uncle San is not by his side. Joining an unfamiliar team, hoping who can go into the water to save oneself. My own 10-year-old uncle. He would be grateful if he didn't have an accident. How dare he risk his life following him into the water? The deep-rooted impression remains there. Even though she knew that Bai Chen was different from ordinary children and had great strength, in Wu Xie's heart, she was still a 10-year-old child. Wu Xie kicked her right leg back and forth, hoping to break free from the shackles of a foreign ship doctor. Just the more you push, the tighter the other person's grip becomes. It seems that I'm afraid of losing my lifebuoy when I let go. Wu Xie poured a few more mouthfuls of seawater one after another, and his stomach churned and he just wanted to vomit wildly. Under pressure and helplessness, one can only resort to the next move. Taking advantage of the opportunity to float, he kicked the foreigner's shoulder with his left leg. After all, if we don't get out of trouble, both of us will have to die in the sea. Don't say it really has therapeutic effects. The foreigner was already stunned and stared at Wu Xie, but instinctively grabbed him as a life-saving straw. Now, under a frantic kick, my body can't bear the pain. My hand has loosened. Wu Xie's body lightened, and he felt as if he had shed a ton-heavy bundle with ease. There is a little more hope for survival. But he is not a ruthless person, unable to watch others drown in front of him. Take a breath. A fierce man plunged into the sea and began searching for the traces of the foreigner. Fortunately, the foreigner had a large physique and a clear goal, so the effort of farting hit his head. Wu Xie couldn't see the specific situation clearly. Pinching his crooked neck with his feet, he gradually dives downwards. Try to avoid his randomly swaying arms and reach out to grab the other person's collar. I exerted all my energy and pulled hard towards the sea. Just got a head up. My eyes haven't opened yet, and I seem to hear someone calling me in the distance. What seems to be spitting bubbles? Just as he was about to respond, the foreigner suddenly became restless and tried to swing his body, pulling him into the water. Wu Xie said in her heart, selling ma pai, I don't know if I should say it or not. How did Bai Chen know that Wu Xie had gone through so much? If he knew that his nephew had set himself up to save others. I will definitely hit his forehead and scold him for being foolish and lacking. Bai Chen tried his best to squint his eyes and adapt to the underwater situation. I vaguely saw someone ahead. Judging by instinct and physique, it should be Wu Xie, one's eldest nephew, who should not be surprised. Bai Chen was extremely excited. Extend your arm to reach forward. After grabbing twice, he was shocked to realize that he was not tall enough to hook his arm at the other person. He was so angry that he slapped the water. I hate the system for not being human and turning myself into a little loser. How could this be so? You can only slide forward 2 more times. When the two were less than a meter apart, Ling Buting reached out with a hand and grabbed Wu Xie's collar. Push up hard and drag the person out of the sea. The seawater was stirred even more turbid, blocking Bai Chen's view. I'll make a big move. The fat that was about to be obtained was cut off by someone, and Bai Chen spat out water. One water bubble after another left him. He was worried about Wu Xie's personal safety, so he forcefully kicked his legs into the water, and his body rushed out of the sea like an arrow from the bow. My little head was swaying from side to side, wanting to see clearly who took the initiative to save my eldest nephew. Although there is some speculation in my heart, not confirming it will ultimately lead to instability. When he saw clearly that it was indeed Zhang Tuzi who took the action, his suspended heart completely returned to his heart. Quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Accelerate and swim to Wu Xie's side, grabbing his arm and saying, Big nephew, are you okay? Cough cough. Wu Xie coughed violently, almost coughing her lungs, but her eyes were fixed on Bai Chen with a worried expression on her face. Cough. Who asked you? To come down. He breathed a sigh of relief and grabbed Bai Chen's arm with his back hand, eagerly saying, "It's so dangerous, isn't it deadly?" "Nonsense, you're my nephew. Can I not save you in case of an accident?" As Bai Chen said, it is natural to assume that elders should take care of younger generations. To avoid Wu Xie continuing his preaching, he turned his head and waved his hand at Zhang Tuzi, "Brother Tu, thank you for saving my nephew." The bizarre title almost made Wu Xie choke to death. Is there such an apology? Don't be afraid of others letting go, kiss your nephew, and I'll fall into the sea again. He wanted to add a few more sentences or explain, but the situation was too bad at the moment and he was not given a chance. The waves beat against each other to form vortices. A little carelessness can easily lead to being submerged in the sea again. Zhang Tuzi seemed to mind this word a bit, and his thick eyebrows furrowed together. He spoke in fluent Mandarin and said, "Child, it's a bit impolite to call you that way. I saved your loved ones, shouldn't you show me some respect?" "Oh my, a nickname is just a code name." Bai Chen waved his hand again and turned his finger to the ship that was far behind him, saying in a serious tone, "Let's talk about the main matter first. The ship is getting farther and farther away, and we can't find a way to get up anymore. We'll just have to rest.